There's no way that they made a movie about freeing a captive whale and then like didn't free the whale, right?
They say I'm a prophet, but I'm the one they don't trust.
Hello, and welcome to my Pillow Talk. So, Free Willy is a 1993 MTV Movie Awards nominated feature film following the adventures of a 12-year-old boy and his quest to free his pet whale from the clutches of a capitalist war zone known as knockoff SeaWorld. I'm not going to be telling you about the dangers of capitalism as foretold in Free Willy. Instead, I'm going to tell you about why I think that this movie is actually about existentialism. Roll the tape. Roll the tape! Part 1. The Free Willy paradigm. History can really be broken up into two parts, okay? Things are either pre-Free Willy or post-Free Willy. PFW or PFW. Free Willy is ground zero for boys and their whales. Boys and their whales is the very official sociological, philosophical, scientific term that I have coined and patented for the fact that if there is a whale in a book or a movie or a TV show, there will inevitably in its vicinity be a troubled boy who needs to find himself, okay? I don't make the rules. But this is how it is. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. Free Willy, right? Voyage of the Mimi. Pinocchio. Jonah. Jonah was a grown man, but still, the point is here that boys and their whales is a thing, and it's a thing that I haven't been able to stop thinking about for several years. So that said, before we properly dive in, since we are not going to be spending a lot of time talking about this, I do want to say off the top that, like, I have seen Blackfish, okay? And I think everybody should see Blackfish. Blackfish is a documentary about the mistreatment of whales, and it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. I think it's important to watch, but it is very disturbing. Like, it's not chill. So for the record, you can quote me on this. Whales, not pets, don't belong in captivity. I don't need to see a whale at the Camden Aquarium. I really don't. This will come up later because it's going to be relevant for obvious reasons, but I just wanted to make it clear off the top that we hate SeaWorld, and I think the fact that they've simply renamed their whale shows Orca Encounters is a disgusting cop-out. If you don't know what I mean by whale shows, SeaWorld, which is like a what is it? It's like an aquarium park thing. It's dumb is what it is. It's dumb. But SeaWorld started doing like whale performance shows in the 1960s with Shamu. Shamu was a juvenile whale who was captured off the coast of Washington, and she spent a few weeks in a local aquarium before she was bought with money by SeaWorld. And then she was forced to perform in these like orca shows and like bounce a ball on her nose and do all kinds of ridiculous shit until 1971 when she attacked a performer and subsequently died months later. This tragic event had SeaWorld sort of rethinking their whole program, and they sat down and they really thought about it, and they ultimately decided that they were going to continue capturing whales and just use the name Shamu as a stage name for all of them. It's giving Punxsutawney Phil, but, you know, this continued to happen to these poor creatures that were, like, cooped up, kept in, like, little tanks and glorified swimming pools where they could barely move around, fed inconsistent diets, and forced to perform like show ponies, eventually snapped. And it was often while the whale trainers were in the water. Whale trainers who were underpaid, overly passionate, and really loved these creatures, and really, a lot of times, believed that they had a special connection with these creatures. They are the ones who paid the price, ultimately. And what's crazy about it is that this would happen like in public shows. Like this would happen in front of audiences, in front of children. The money that the concept of Shamu brought in to SeaWorld just outweighed everything else and any other possible alternative. And it's not just a SeaWorld thing. We're gonna use SeaWorld like almost ambiguously. Any kind of like water adventure aquarium park thing. Because no matter how many incidents like this occurred, the shows just did not stop. They just did not stop. There were gag orders put in place and puff pieces written in magazines and settlements and cover-ups and pretty much anything that needed to be done to keep the public in the dark as long as possible was done. The story of Tilikum, which is outlined in the extremely disturbing documentary Blackfish that I highly recommend you watch. It's horrific and horrendous to the point where I really don't want to get into it. But Tilikum is a whale who was held captive, treated horrifically, and was involved in several incidents, including the 1991 drowning of a 20-year-old trainer, Kelty Byrne, at Sealand of the Pacific. And that incident, for context, is number 33 on this freemorgan.org list of orca incidents at public parks that I found. I don't know if that's an exhaustive list of every incident that's ever happened, but the fact that it's 33 is crazy. How you get past 2, 3 without realizing that this is a problem is beyond me. The introduction of Shamu is in 1965. That is 33 incidents in 26 years. And that is the context and the backdrop for Free Willy. Free Willy was filmed in 1992 and came out in 1993. 33 incidents of whales, making it very clear that they are not meant to be in captivity, and people not really super knowing about that. And Free Willy changed everything in terms of the public perception. Like we can talk about the actual impact on like animal safety and care later, but in terms of like how people saw the whale shows and saw these creatures and the concept of these marine parks, this movie was huge. Nobody gave a shit about the whales before Free Willy. I'm sorry. They just didn't. Like animal activists did, regular people did not. Now, did the people who made Free Willy give a shit about whales when they made Free Willy? Up for debate. We can assess that later. The point is that Free Willy is a big fucking deal, okay? Free Willy is a big fucking deal. Pre-Free Willy, there were a lot of like thrillers and like horror movies about orca whales, right? Like the killer whale was taken incredibly seriously and they were like monster creatures. There were a couple films that were like man bonds with whale to set whale free, but like it was mostly kind of scary killer whale movie. But that's not everything. In the 1980s, there was also The Voyage of the Mimi. And Voyage of the Mimi is a science show. It's a science show from the 1980s starring Ben Affleck that follows a tween-age boy named CT as he is sent to his grandfather's for the summer. And his grandfather is this grouchy old man who has a boat called the Mimi that's going to go on a voyage. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Basically, science people who want to go science on the ocean can't drive boats, so they have to hire a grouchy old man and his small, awkward grandson to take them out into the ocean so that they can science. And everybody learns something, right? We learn a lesson about whales. We learn a lesson about life. We learn a lesson about survival. The show takes a weird turn. It takes a weird turn. Most of the show is like 15 minutes of them being on the boat and like learning something about like whale songs or how whales are tracked and whatnot. And then the second 15 minutes is like out of character, like the actors going to do some kind of like science lesson. It's funny because they give baby Ben Affleck all of the best adventures, which like they should, but like baby Ben Affleck is going to like cryo chambers. He's being like taken to the Arctic. He's like swimming with creatures. Then you cut to like the next episode and the other guy's like listening to whale songs. I get it, because if you're like, you gotta give the fun ones to the kid. Like you can't have a 10-year-old and be like, sorry, you don't get to go to the wind chamber adventure. Like that would be a bummer. But I do think it's really funny because I would be annoyed. What was I talking about? Oh, okay. So anyway, that's the majority of the show. And then there's a point in the show where it just goes, they get shipwrecked. Like, they legitimately get shipwrecked. And the grandfather almost dies. And two of the other dudes have to strip down naked and get in a sleeping bag to keep him warm. They, like, are running out of food. They do have a guitar, thank God. But, like, it just takes a very sudden and dark turn into Moby Dick territory. It's very strange. But anyway, Free Willy. Free Willy comes out in 1993, and Free Willy follows tween-age fugitive Jesse, who is on the run from the law. I'm not kidding. I'm kind of kidding. Jesse's lived on the streets He's living on the streets in the Pacific Northwest, right? Originally, apparently, he was like just a boy. And then in the making of the film, one of the producers was like, he should have some edge. Let's give him some street cred. And so they made him like a meddling orphan, causing mayhem on the streets of what looks like Astoria, Oregon. Maybe it's supposed to be Portland. Either way, Jesse and his friends are causing a little ruckus, right? And they're like hiding from the cops because they stole like a cake, and they're hiding out in this what looks like an abandoned adventure aquarium. It is not, evidently, but they're hiding out in this like adventure aquarium park situation where they figure, while we're hiding from the cops, should we like do a vandalism? Just like a little one, like a little fun treat, just a little vandalism. So Jesse spray paints onto this mysterious tank, which, surprise, has a scary whale in it. To be fair, if you are 12, it is probably very terrifying if you're not expecting to see a whale, okay? I'll give him that. Destiny. This is destiny, okay? This is fate. He meets this whale, the stars align, the earth trembles, God himself sheds a tear. But before they really get to connect and vibe, Jesse gets caught, because of course he does, because you are hiding out in another establishment doing another crime. Two crimes don't make a left. He gets caught, and instead of going to baby jail,
they'll put you in baby jail. That means a lockup in juvenile hall, son.
He just kind of gets like assigned a new foster home, and they're like, hey, just don't run away this time. Go to this foster home, where the dad makes it very clear that like, this is a lease, I ain't buying yet.
Well, this is a lease. I ain't buying yet.
Which is crazy. And his community service project to kind of make up for getting out of baby jail is that he has to clean up the mess that he made at the aquarium. So it's sort of explained to Jesse that Willy is like not particularly good at being a performing show pony. He doesn't really do the tricks that they want him to do. He doesn't catch the ball or do the jumpy, like the thing where they like come out of the, it's got a name. What's the name? What does it mean? What is it when whales breaching. He won't breach, okay? Speaking of breach, did you know that it takes companies on average 277 days to report data breaches? Data breaches that contain your data, your personal data, could be sitting in the hands of a capital C criminal for several months and you would have no idea. That's terrifying. That is a horrifying concept. Bank of America has had several breaches in the past year. Last year, Citigroup and JP Morgan and Chase all announced they had breaches. Your bank could be breached right now, and you would be several months away from finding out about it. Do you want a criminal to have a 9-month head start? I don't think so. That's why it is so important for us to be talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Because while I'm doing this and talking to you about the importance of boys and their whales, Aura is keeping an eye out on the dark web for my phone number, my email, my social security number, and they are going to alert me if anyone tries to use that information to get into my bank accounts or steal my identity. If, God forbid, worst case scenario, that does happen, Aura gives me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, so I'm covered. I'm covered. They've got me. And they can have you too. They can have you too. You can go to my link, aura.com/bizbarclay, to try 14 days for free, which is more than enough time for Aura to find out if your data is exposed and let you know before whatever company is like forced to tell you, okay? Look, it's a lot. It's a lot. I know. But I don't want to roll the dice on my identity protection anymore. And if you don't either, just go to aura.com/bizbarclay to try 2 weeks for free. And thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video. It's very cool. I love when my sponsors do things that keep people safe. It's great. Speaking of safe, you know who's not safe mentally, physically, spiritually? Willy the whale.
Willy gets in the mood. You gotta give him his space. You know what I mean?
So he goes to off-brand SeaWorld, which in this case is a compliment, and he meets the whale trainer, and the whale trainer is like, hey, don't fuck with the whale. Don't fuck with the whale and he won't fuck with you. And Jesse is like, aye, Captain. God, I wish people did the same for me. Fair. I feel you. I'm with you, kid. And this like troubled, parentless boy character is ever present through all whale stories. If there is a whale, you best believe somewhere nearby is a broken boy or man who just needs to learn and grow. Okay. Luna, Spirit of the Whale, is a Canadian movie about a recovering alcoholic, and he is returning home to his First Nations reserve to attend his father's funeral. So he has like a job in another city, and he's coming back to attend his father's funeral. And his father was the chief, which means that like technically speaking, he should now be chief, but he does not want to be chief. He plans to like just do the funeral and get the fuck out of Dodge, right? But while he is there, his mom convinces him to help out this troubled kid with dead parents that his father, the chief, was apparently mentoring. This movie is based on a true story as well. Not the recovering alcoholic bit, I think. I don't know. I don't know if the like boy connecting with his father family storyline is true, but the actual story is based on a true story, and we'll get into it. But speaking of true story, did you know that Chris Hemsworth made a Moby Dick movie? It's not actually Moby Dick because obviously no one wants to put the word dick on a movie poster next to Chris Hemsworth's face except for me, but it is based on the story that Moby Dick is based on, because Moby Dick is based on a true story. Huh. Ow. I did not read Moby Dick. I will not be reading Moby Dick. I have tried several times in my life to read Moby Dick, and I can't get through the first like 4 pages. It is too dense, and it's not fun for me. So I tapped out, okay? It very sadly has joined the pile of books that I have never been able to finish, which includes Lord of the Rings and the Lord Byron biography that I'm using for the Lord Byron video. It's so long! He's in so much debt! I'm gonna find out that Lord Byron had a whale story, aren't I? Anyway, I didn't read the book, but I did watch this movie and do a bit of research for you, okay? I did some research because I respect you and I have nothing better to do with my time. And so The Heart of the Sea is the film that Chris Hemsworth is starring in, and it is based on the book The Heart of the Sea, The Tragedy of the Whale Ship Essex by Nathaniel Philbrick. It was published in 2000. It is about the tragedy of the whale ship Essex, which is that it sunk. Stinked? It sunk. It was sunk, sank, sinkened, obliterated from boatly existence by a sperm whale, which makes the Moby Dick thing like so much funnier. Big, huge ass white whale. I don't know if I can stress to you how big sperm whales are. They're massive. So the whale ship Essex is in the Pacific Ocean in 1820. It's on its way to South America, and it gets hit by this whale, and it is a big disaster. Most people died. Most of the people died. But not everybody died. Some people lived. Some people lived to tell the tale, including Thomas Nickerson. And Thomas Nickerson, played by Tom Holland in the film, was a 14-year-old cabin boy who, drumroll please, was an orphan. His parents died before he was 2 years old. Thank you very much. And that's a true story. And they make Tom Holland get inside a whale. Inside a whale. Speaking of inside a whale, Pinocchio. Do you remember him? Orphan boy, sort of orphan, sort of boy, very troubled, can't stop lying, and really needs a father figure and a rhinoplasty. He gets swallowed by a whale-ish, right? You know who else gets swallowed by a whale? Jonah. This is the biggest stretch because Jonah wasn't technically a boy, but he was troubled and he had some learning to do. So like spiritually, Jonah is a boy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Jonah of And the Whale fame is a figure in the Old Testament, which is before God went soft, before God became like a father figure to humanity and lost his edge, let's be honest. Before that, God was hard as fuck. God was intense. Old Testament God would smite you for blinking too hard, or maybe not hard enough. We don't know, but all I'm saying is that this is a guy who would kill your whole family to teach you a lesson, okay? And he tells Jonah to go and prophesize to the city of Nineveh because they are living in sin. They're a hot mess over there. He's like, Jonah, I need you to go and tell them about me. And God tells Jonah that he has to go prophesize to these people. If you don't prophesize to them, I'm going to have to smite them. And I don't want to smite them, even though I feel like he did kind of want to smite them. Jonah is contemplating because here's the thing, like this city, they're like low-key rivals. It's like a Hatchetfield-Clivesdale situation. They don't vibe. And Jonah's just kind of thinking, he's like, I mean, like, these people are, like, really not cool to the Jewish people. Like, they're really fucking with my people. And maybe I don't tell them anything. Ooh, would that be crazy? Would that be crazy? Maybe I just, like, hop on this boat and let them get what they deserve, right? I mean, how's God gonna know? Obviously, this does not work out in his favor. There's like a storm. Jonah gets thrown off the boat. He's swallowed by a whale. He gets back to the city and God is like, hey, what did I say? And Jonah's like, fine. And Jonah goes very begrudgingly to go do what God says. Then God is like, thank you. This is why we have compassion. And it's all fine after that. Now, what does any of this have to do with existentialism? Existentialism is a brand of philosophy that started brewing in like the 19th century, but really like came to a boil, came to a fruition. It had its greatest hits, Eras Tour rounds in the like mid 20th century in Europe. Existentialism is concerned with a lot of things. It's very vast. It has a lot of angles, but it was really like a reaction sort of to rationalism. And rationalism was like basically what was going on in philosophy up to that point, right? So through the 1700s, early 1800s, it was just like, how do we think our way through? How can we think our way to happiness? Like, how do we solve all of our problems by thinking really, really hard? It was all about like deduction, philosophical arguments, right? Like I've talked about it in other videos. You have like the if X and Y, then Z, therefore cat. Like that kind of thing. Like I think therefore I am structure was like the beat, right? Like that was the hot ticket. Then existentialists were kind of like, are we sure that that's the way to go? Because just gonna throw it out there, things don't seem to be better. We don't seem to be happier on the whole. This is like 19th century, like peak depression era, mental depression, not economic depression. And, and so the existentialists really started asking questions and exploring meaning, like the meaning of life and freedom and responsibility and agency. Because if you kill God, like Nietzsche did, or like some would argue Kant did first, if you kill God with rationalism and enlightenment, and you reason your way into a world without divine predestination and precognition, if there is no big man sky daddy playing with us like we are Sims, then what? Like, what is the point? What is the point of having you all? That's what the Brothers Karamazov is all about. The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. If you watched my God's Not Dead video is like secretly a Brothers Karamazov video. The question of the Brothers Karamazov is, if there is no afterlife, then why should we be moral? What is morality if you are not trying to avoid hell? All of those kind of questions in the late 19th century lead to this existential crisis of what are we doing here and what is the point of anything? And it's a lot, okay? Existentialism is a lot. People are going to be mad about whatever I say about existentialism, because anything that Nietzsche is even tangentially related to becomes like a nightmare to talk about on the internet, because someone is always just like, actually. And so we're not going to talk about Nietzsche, because everything that is tangentially related to Nietzsche academically becomes a nightmare to talk about on the internet. Also, like, I don't care about him. I really could not care less about his anti-Semitic coke-fueled ramblings about how he's Mozart and women are lion cows. Like, I really couldn't give any less of a shit. We're also not going to be, like, solving existentialism. This is not a course on existentialism. There's definitely a philosophy tube video that's better. whatever. Luckily, I don't actually have to teach you existentialism because the boys and their whales are gonna do it for me, all right? What do all of these boys have in common besides the whale? Lying. Lies. Dirty old lies. But not just any dirty old lie, though there is certainly a fair amount of that. A specific kind of lying. Lying to yourself. Lying to yourself, a concept we are all familiar with. One that is particularly important to the Britney Spears of existentialism, Jean-Paul Sartre, who is a French philosopher born in 1905 who died in 1980, and he wrote that famous play No Exit, where like hell is other people because they're all trapped in a room together, and instead of being tortured, they all just have to judge each other for eternity. That guy wrote about this specific kind of flavor of lying to yourself that he calls bad faith. This bad faith is different from the internet's bad faith, right? Like, this is not the same as when someone commented on my last video that because I used a more feminist reading of the myth of Calypso, I am therefore a apologist. Not the bad faith where people assume malicious intent in every comment section, and not the kind of bad faith the Nietzsche bros like to put in the comments of my God's Not Dead Midnight Mass video. Not that. Bad faith in existentialism is an affect. It's a psychological, metaphysical explanation for certain human behavior. We are in bad faith when we are denying our freedom, not only of action, but of being. When we become too wrapped up in sort of hyper-specific identities like the good girl, the athlete, the mom, the YouTuber. When we start to label ourselves, we often find ourselves altering our behavior to fit into this mold or brand of who we think we are or should be in order to fit into society or achieve some kind of goal that we think will make us happy. We are performing the role of blank. That's what it means to be in bad faith. And like Pinocchio's like literally a puppet. Pinocchio is actually a really great example because Pinocchio isn't in bad faith because he's lying to Geppetto. Pinocchio is in bad faith because he thinks that he has no choice but to join the puppet show and is letting someone literally pull his strings and control him. He's not taking responsibility for his actions. That's what puts him in bad faith. It's not the fact that he skipped school and then tried to lie about it. It's the fact that he didn't feel like he had the option to say no in the first place. Jonah is in bad faith because Jonah thinks that he can just avoid his responsibility for the smiting of the entire city by dipping out, telling himself that the people of Nineveh could never have changed, and if he prophesied to them, it still would have meant nothing, and that they kind of deserve it, and that's, you know, the way that it should be. And so when we meet Jesse is in bad faith. He thinks that he has no choice but to act the way that he does. He thinks that he's just like a street kid and he's a troublemaker and that this is sort of all he can do. He doesn't have parents and no one is going to help him. He assumes that everyone is going to leave him and denies the possibility that going into this new foster family could be good, maybe. He denies the possibility that anybody is looking out for his best interests. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying that he's not right to think that. The foster care system, especially in the United States, is horrible. And most of the time, kids are not being treated with respect or care. And most people in the world are like probably not good people, you know? Neither Sart or I are saying that you can will yourself out of poverty if you just believe, but rather that in this scenario, Jesse is over-identifying with his physical circumstances and situation, which is what Sartre and Beauvoir call fasticity. Fasticity is your physical circumstances, where you are born, what time and place, your environment, your previous life choices, things that are concrete and outside of your control that cannot be changed anymore. Being in bad faith is denying your agency in the situation and denying that maybe if you give an inch, someone else might give an inch, and there's like a possibility. Jesse's an orphan, he's living on the street, he steals for food, he has no choice but to do vandalisms. So when he gets to his new foster home, he's pretty like standoffish and aggressive because he doesn't think that there's any way that they'll want to keep him, right? He doesn't think that there's any way that these people are actually going to care for him. He's over-identifying with the situation and over-identifying with his past experiences. And as a result of that, he is closed off and not really able to receive love and care and build a connection. In Luna, Spirit of the Whale, Mike denies the responsibility of taking up the role of chief after his father's death and clings to this arbitrary deadline that he sets for himself of, I have to be back at the end of the week. And I think he does have a job offer or something, but he sort of keeps telling everybody who asks him to come and help with the whale thing, which did I explain the whale thing? No, not yet. He keeps telling everybody who is asking him to stay and help. I have this job offer waiting. I wish I could help, but I can't. Like, I gotta go. Like, he literally tells the sort of troubled kid, Adam, I think some people gotta work, you know what I mean? Like, I have to work and I'm gonna lose this job offer if I don't go, right? Like, I can't help the band and help you, and I have no choice but to leave because of my circumstances with this job. Again, we're not saying that that's not true. We're not saying that he can just magically have a better job offer if he chooses to. We're saying that he is denying any other possible situation and just saying, like, oh, I'm locked into this. Like, this is what's happening. Tom Holland in Off-Brand Moby Dick feels he has no choice but to get inside that whale. I don't really remember the plot of that movie very well. But you get the idea, right? Like, you get the point. Like, these boys are all dirty little liars who don't know who they are. They're having a crisis of faith, family, and self. They are having an existential crisis. They are having an existential crisis. And the only one who can help drag them out of the depths and the horrors of human existence is floating along in the deep blue sea. It's the whales. Part 2. What do the whales have to do with this again? Nobody understands Willy. Everybody is out here like, most orcas are nice, but this one is so mean and we don't know why. And Jesse is the only one who's like, I don't know, maybe because he's an orphan and you never leave him alone. Ever thought of that? 2 lost souls drifting out in the deep, passing like ships in the night, brought together by the sweet, sweet sounds of a 12-year-old playing harmonica. That said, no amount of harmonica playing can fix poor balance and coordination. So, womp womp, kid falls in the tank. Right, he falls in the tank, which would theoretically be really bad because of the whole, like, killer part of the killer whale thing. But by this point, especially because we've been told for the whole first quarter of this movie that, like, Willy is actually mean as fuck and, like, cyberbullying all of the marine park staff. So everybody is pretty sure that, like, he's gonna, like, eat this 12-year-old brat and his harmonica for breakfast. That's what they think is going on. Is that what's going on, though? No, because this kid is one special little white boy. This is Randolph, by the way. That's Randolph. I haven't introduced you to him yet, but he works at the marine park and he plays what ends up being a really important role that is also very much like whatever the native indigenous version of, like, the magical Negro is. It's like stereotypical, this is Randolph. We love Randolph, okay? We love Randolph. So Willy saves Jesse when he falls in the tank, and inspired by this act of kindness, this olive branch presented by the whale in the form of his life, Jesse starts spending, like, a lot more time at Off-Brand SeaWorld. He's bonding with Willy. He's, like, learning about whales. He's learning about how they train them, and it's cute, okay? It's very cute. It's very pure. He's, like, using his allowance money to, like, go down and, like, buy Willy nicer fish because he wants him to, like, eat better than the way that Off-Brand SeaWorld is feeding him, and he's, like, chatting with him, and they, like, literally do the, like, toothless and hiccup scene from How to Train Your Dragon decades before, and it's precious.
What, you want to go with me? Oh, I can do that too. Can you cruise?
It's so cute. It's so cute. It's just these two little traumatized people, whales, just, like, coming together.
Looks like Willy's got himself a soulmate.
This movie should have won Oscars, but it didn't. It didn't win any Oscars. In fact, it wasn't even nominated for an Oscar. You know what it was nominated for, though? The 1994 MTV Movie Awards. Do you know what it was nominated for at the 1994 MTV Movie Awards? Best Kiss. It was nominated for Best Kiss. It was nominated for Best Kiss. No. Is it because I'm not a traumatized 12-year-old? It's not fair. I can't control my outside circumstances. I can't control my fastidiouss.
I love you, Willy.
I mean, come on. It's so cute. What? It's so cute. We were robbed. Is what I'm saying. They were robbed. I'm not that involved. They were robbed of the MTV Movie Award for Best Kiss that year. You will never change my mind on that. That is so cute. It is the sweetest, most purest, precious thing that I've ever seen in my entire life, except for you. Second only to you. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Jesse is like getting more and more opportunity to change his behavior, right? To act differently. And we can see how being responsible and working with Willy isn't just like fun for him, right? Like it's changing his outlook on things. It's changing the way he approaches new problems. His friends ask him to go and like get in trouble like they used to, and he's just like, nah man, I gotta hang with my fish. And we have a similar situation in Luna, Spirit of the Whale. It's occurring to me now that I have not like actually told you about the whale in that movie and what the plot is. Sorry about it, but No Time Like the Present. Luna, Spirit of the Whale is based on / inspired by the true story of a whale that the public named Luna that started sort of just like hanging around off the coast of Canada in like 2001. And even though I don't know if the like alcoholic son returning home bit is necessarily based on a true story, Luna did kind of pop up in the Gold River Inlet just like a few days after the death of the local Mwachahet First Nations band chief Ambrose Maguna. And Chief Maguna has apparently said, you know, prior to his death that he wished to return after death as like a wolf or an orca. So Luna popping up at that time is seen as sort of symbolic, and his safety, Luna's safety was extremely important to the band because of this, which did lead to tensions between the band and the different organizations who were trying to figure out like, what do we do with this whale? Because he was just there, he was just hanging around. And believe it or not, you can't really have a pet whale. Like even if it's in an open ocean near people, like it's very dangerous. Even whale scientists and conservationists and reports say that like whales who lose their fear of boats, it's very cute, but eventually they have an unfortunate run-in with like propellers or something, right? And most of them die because of this, because they're not afraid of the boats and they just go up to them and it's dangerous. So it was like important to some people to try and get him out of there and back home to his family, because they knew where his family was because he was being tracked by scientists. They knew where he came from and they theoretically could get him back to his pod. But what if he doesn't want to go back to his pod? What if he doesn't want to go back to his pod? We're talking about the movie again now, not the real people. But the question in the movie is, what if the whale doesn't want to be forced to go home to a family that he clearly left? What if he has a really great job offer in the city? What if he doesn't want to be chief? Do you see what's happening here? Parallels. We have parallels. They're similar, only difference is that Luna actually seems to be like quite happy and Mike is quite miserable because Mike is in bad faith. Mike doesn't want anything to do with his heritage because he wants to be different. He wants to ignore that part of his life and ignore his upbringing so that he can focus on being in this like local city and this job and fit in with mainstream society, right?
So what's it been, 6 years since you saw him last?
5. He's here now, Bill. That's what Ambrose wanted.
He's denying this whole part of himself, and it makes it really hard for him to connect with his mother, to grieve for his father, and to help this kid get his shit together. Mike doesn't really know how to help this kid, so he does what his father did for him, which is make him, you know, clean these old ancestral boats and like get in touch with, you know, their heritage and their history and their people. And when they do, they then, you know, take the boats out and, you know, come across this whale. And like Mike doesn't really think that the whale is his father reincarnated the way that a lot of the other people in the film seem to think, but he does have like a moment. They do have a moment. And he's like, all right. He's like, okay, I'm here, you know, I've got a couple days left. Maybe I'll go talk to the local boat managers, police, boat cops, whatever they are. He's like, I'll talk to them and just say like, hey, I know you guys got to do what you got to do with the whale, but just could you run any plans by my people? Because the whale's really important. Just, you know, open lines of communication. Now, the boat people are not going to do this because the boat people are bad people, but the point is that he's kind of starting to change his ways a little bit, right? He's connecting with his home and his family, but he's still banking on this deadline, right? He's got to bounce as soon as he can because he just has to go, he thinks. You know, he's just not cut out to be chief. He doesn't think he can do it. He thinks that he has to go take this job and that's the only outcome for him, just like Jesse, who even though he clearly loves Willy and loves working working with Willy and teaching him and is spending all of his allowance on nice fish for Willy. He's still kind of hiding behind this excuse of like community service, and he's still like secretly kind of planning to run away from the foster home, and he's set a deadline for himself as well, and he's still kind of like in denial of the fact that he's changing at all. I mentioned earlier there's a scene where like his friends are trying to encourage him to go and like get into mischief again, and Jesse doesn't say I don't want to, he says I can't.
You can get in on it.
Harry, I can't do that right now.
Right? He's still denying that he has any agency in the situation. Even Jonah did not go willingly back to the shore, my friends. Jonah got yeeted off that boat and swallowed by that whale and spat back out. Jonah went off the boat and he thought that was it. He was like, this is it. This is my moment. I'm being swallowed by the mouth of hell itself. This is my end. Godspeed and good night. It was the whale who was like, absolutely the fuck not. The whale was like, you have shit to do. Did you not hear literal God? Get it together. Even Pinocchio was helped by the Blue Fairy. If you don't know the plot of Pinocchio, one of the points of Pinocchio is that Pinocchio skips school and gets kind of convinced by these shady figures to go and join this like puppet show. And he confesses to the Blue Fairy and he is like, I'm so sorry, it was their fault, they pressured me, I'll never do it again. And the Blue Fairy says, this is the only time that I'm gonna help you, okay? This is it. You have to change your ways now. You learned your lesson, right? Wrong. Pinocchio did not learn his lesson, and he gets kind of roped into going off to, I think it's Pleasure Island, and getting child drunk. And he does the same thing again, right? And he tries blaming it on his friends, right? And on his circumstances. And then Geppetto gets swallowed by a whale. Geppetto gets swallowed by a whale, and suddenly Pinocchio has to do something, has to make a choice, and has to have agency and choose to go and do the right thing. The whale swallowing these characters is like a bucket of cold water, right? It's like a light bulb moment. It's a do or die. Like, you have to make a choice. You have to act. You have to stop being kind of pulled along and acting like you don't have any responsibility. They have to learn and understand their responsibility for their action or inaction. In Free Willy and Luna specifically, it's through like connecting with this whale and seeing themselves in the whale's journey and plight that they are able to start letting go of some of the pretenses and start being more open and honest and beginning to live authentically. But they're not quite all the way there. They haven't fully acted on their freedom just yet. They haven't taken full responsibility for their existence yet. And this is why I think the Free Willy and Luna and the Whale specifically are such good examples of existentialism, because there's a major difference between these boys and their whales. That one difference being in fasticity, in the physical, unchangeable circumstances. And that is the fact that whales can't talk. They can't. They're silent. Jesse and Willy might have started out in the same place, but as Jesse begins to grow and access his own freedom and agency, it becomes increasingly obvious that Willy cannot do that. Remember, I said like this idea of being in bad faith is not to say that you can will yourself out of any circumstances, because Willy can't. Like, Willy can learn to be a better whale, and he can perform better, and he can be nicer and not be mean, but he can't swim out of Portland or wherever they are, right? He can't walk. He can't get out of that physical situation. But Jesse can. Jesse can stop going to the marine park. Jesse can hang out with his new family and forget all of this ever happened and be a good kid now. Willy is trapped in that tank forever. So eventually the big bad capitalist goons who own the marine park in Free Willy are fed up with the fact that Willy is not performing and he's not bringing in the money that they were expecting. So they plan to murder him. They are putting a hole in the tank or something like that. They're going to kill Willy for the insurance money, basically. And this is a big and important moment for our tween fugitive hero, Jesse, because up until this point, Jesse had thought that he was sort of doing everything that he needed to. He was sort of letting go of his perceived identities, behaving better and connecting with his foster mom. But what he was also doing was sort of aligning with this other new identity of this good boy who doesn't break the rules. And when he hears that these goons are going to kill Willy, he realizes that he has to do something. He can no longer just sort of go along to get along. He can't be the bad boy he was, but he also can't be this perfect son and employee either, because he has to look after Willy and do what's right for him.
I gotta look out for Willy, and I gotta do what's best for him.
And it's a real come to Jesus moment, and he decides, in the face of the capitalist goons, he looks at his life and he looks at his whale and he realizes that the only thing that he can do is free Willy. Part 3, putting the free in Free Willy. Turns out my camera died and I didn't record the last half hour of me talking. So, hello, welcome to 2 days later. Part 3, putting the free in Free Willy. So before we slide down onto the finish line, I do want to stop and sort of touch on the role of Indigenous peoples in the sort of evolution of whale stories, as well as just like the protection and conservation of whales in the real world, because it's major. Like, obviously the true story behind Luna involved the Mwatchahet First Nations people of Gold River, and Free Willy heavily features Randolph, who is of the Haida people, an indigenous group in the Pacific Northwest, and it's his story of Nastalene that he tells Jesse that is really inspiring to Jesse, is a story that comes from the Haida and the Tlingit people of the Pacific Northwest, and there are lots of variations. I'm sure there are other variations from other indigenous groups, but that's what I found when researching.
Skana. It's a Haida word for whale. Natsiklane was a Haida who lived a long time ago before there were orca whales. He began carving a great beast in the wall. Natsiklane sat and said a prayer he never heard before. Salana, Eonaesis.
The orca whale, like also called blackfish, is extremely important to a lot of indigenous communities. And as a result, it's often these indigenous people who are out here fighting sort of day in and day out to protect them and to treat them with respect. Clearly, I'm not indigenous. I don't know nearly enough about indigenous culture to feel comfortable diving too deep into that and into their sort of practices and legends. And if any of you are, please put it in the comments, or better yet, somebody else make a video about, particularly about the Natsalene story in Free Willy, because I find that part so interesting. But please feel free, as usual, to put that in the comments. If I said anything wrong, which I'm sure I did, as usual, I'm sorry. But yeah, I did just want to kind of take a moment before we wrap it up to acknowledge the work of these people and say sort of thank you for not only the work that these communities do for real whales in the real world, but also because if it weren't for the Haida people in that story, we would not have the greatest moment in film history. So the freeing of said Willy is sort of a put your money where your mouth is. If you stand for nothing, Burr, what do you fall for moment for everyone involved in Free Willy. Jesse's like, we gotta save this whale. And everybody has to kind of show up or crumble. This is your come to Jesus. You're either in the smoke club or you're out. And everybody has to either help this kid save this whale or live the rest of their lives knowing that not only did they kill this kid's best friend, but also killed his chances of ever becoming a whole and authentic person. And the whale. So we kick it into high gear. I love when movies do this. I love when things suddenly become really, really intense. And everybody gets on board, okay? Glenn, the dad, remember Glenn, I'm not buying the kid yet, whatever his last name is. Glenn, I'm not buying the kid yet, last name becomes Glenn, I was always better at breaking the rules, last name. And not only does he drive his car through a fence with a stolen whale attached to the back, but he punches the shit out of some goon for laying a hand on Jesse.
Let go of my boy.
I mean, maybe it's the daddy issues, but I like it. Anyway, Ray, who loved her job and wanted to be a really good whale trainer, has to kind of accept that this is not the place for Willy and he deserves to be free. And even though she loves him and loves her job and thought she was doing the right thing, that she wasn't doing the right thing and that this isn't right, and she has this opportunity to do the real right thing. Randolph had to accept, that this kid is just one special little white boy. He just is, and he just had to accept that sometimes crazy things do happen, and he had to watch the most incredible scene in all of film ever. I cry every single time. Every time. And here's how it goes down. They get him to like the marina, they get him to like a coast, right? They get him to the ocean basically. But capitalist goons are hot on their tail. And they're setting up a net basically at the one exit. It's surrounded by sort of breakwaters. And Jesse runs out onto this breakwater, which is just like a bunch of rocks that will stop Willy from swimming out into the open ocean. And he just starts begging him to jump the breakwater. And it is, oh my God, my heart grows 5 sizes every time I see it. And he has to use the trick that he was learning. And Willy, the whale, who did not want to perform, who did not do tricks, who never performed for anyone else, the only way that he could be free is to so cute. The only way that he can be free is to do the trick, to do the thing that he doesn't want to do for anybody else.
Come on, Willy, you don't have to do it once, just once, boy.
But because he loves Jesse and he trusts Jesse, he does it and he jumps, and Jesse says the hide a prayer from Death's Story, and it's so good. Oh my God. And Jesse's like, say hello to your mom for me, boy. And I just, it's incredible. It's so good. And it's just it's the most unbelievable shot in any movie ever. It's crazy. Everybody cries, especially me. And then you find out that you personally can help save the whales by dialing 1-800-4-WHALES. So that's Free Willy. Now, if you're anything like me, you're sitting there and you're watching the end credits and you're thinking, wow, that's so cute. They put Keiko's name in the credits. Keiko the whale who played Willy, they put Keiko's name in the credits like he's a little actor. That's so cute. And it'll be in that exact moment that you realize. Okay? You realize. And you think to yourself, no, there's no way. There's no way that they made a movie about freeing a captive whale and then didn't free the whale, right? But yeah, no, that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they did. And it's not funny, okay? It's not funny. It's animal abuse. So it's not funny because animal abuse isn't funny. But just realizing that there had to be a moment, right? Because this is a movie made by movie people. It wasn't made to save the whales. That wasn't the goal. It wasn't an animal activist group setting out to free a whale. It was people trying to make a movie. And you realize when you think about it that there had to be a moment. There had to be a moment during all of the logistics meetings and casting sessions, wardrobe fittings, location scouting. During all of this, there was a meeting. I'm imagining a boardroom, and they're discussing, using a real whale, how great it's going to be and what the logistics are of that. And they have to be talking about that final scene. And somebody has to raise their hand or clear their throat and say, after we free Willy, how do we recapture the whale? I don't know when it happened exactly, but I know that it had to have happened. Somebody had to say the phrase, how are we going to make sure that the whale playing the freed whale does not accidentally get freed? How do we release a whale into the open ocean and not release the whale? Oh my God. And it's so heartbreaking because it makes you realize that he was just a she. I think Keiko was a girl who played Willy, but Keiko didn't know. Keiko didn't know that Keiko was in a movie. It's cute that they put Keiko's name in the credits, but Keiko didn't make any money off of that. Keiko was not fairly compensated. Keiko just jumped over a breakwater into free open ocean. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around, brought back to a 20 by 20 tank. And then I guess got turned around It's horrifying, and it really didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me while I was watching the movie. Like, I knew it was a whale. I knew it was a real whale. And I knew that there was, like, a movement eventually to, like, free the whale, which we'll talk about. But it wasn't until that moment that I realized, like, they really made a movie about freeing a captive whale and didn't free the whale. That's crazy. It's so crazy. I can't wrap my head around it. I would give so much money to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. There had to have been somebody in there that at least thought it, and just on their face of like, should we be? Are we missing the point? It's crazy. It's so crazy. Thankfully, I'm apparently not the only one who thought this. Apparently, many other people also had this reaction, because there was a movement to free Keiko, and it was, we'll say, as successful as something like that could be, right? The thing that you have to understand is that whales should not be captured. Hot take. Don't capture wild animals. And it's one of the things that you'll kind of understand watching sort of Blackfish, which again, very disturbing. Be prepared when you watch it. But it's one of these things where, like, once it's done, it's really like fundamentally fucks that whale up forever. Like, you can't, like, the history of whale captivity and abuse is very complicated, and the process of freeing these whales that have already been captured is really something that marine biologists and conservationists and people who know a lot more about this than me should be, and hopefully are, figuring out. But what I have gathered is that it's kind of difficult, because once they are no longer with a pod, it is hard to reunite them with their family. It's hard for whales who have, were captured as little babies, hand-fed their whole life, to figure out how to live in the ocean. And then there's like a whole ethical conversation of like, well, is it then ethically fair to release whales into the ocean? How do you free these whales that can't take care of themselves? It's a whole thing. And I don't have the answer. Long story short is that Keiko was more or less officially and completely free for all intents and purposes by 2002, which is like a little under 10 years after the movie was made, which is too long. And I really, I wanted to talk about that moment because it's an amazing, amazing moment. It's so good. But I also wanted to, acknowledge that this is a movie about a whale escaping the clutches of money-hungry CEOs and executive greed, that stars an uncompensated whale living in the clutches of money-hungry CEOs and executive greed. And all Keiko got was this lousy Teen Choice Award nominated. They didn't even win. They lost to Woody Harrelson, of all people. It's just not fair. Anyway, is back to the analysis of everything. Jesse learns through caring for this defenseless creature, for this sort of mirrored image of himself in many ways, that he has agency and freedom. And not only does life have meaning, but that meaning is found in connecting to other people, in learning to love and to let yourself be loved. And when Jesse is able to learn that lesson through connecting with Willy, it opens the floor for all of these other people to start to learn that lesson as well, right? Glenn and Ray and all these people. Like, through watching Connection and watching someone change and grow, they're all able to kind of take these lessons on themselves. And in their commitment to help this defenseless creature, they are able to understand their own function and their own freedom and agency in a way that they didn't before. It specifically goes from a place of being like, what's the point of behaving if I don't have parents to punish me, to I'm going to choose to misbehave in order to free this creature who cannot free himself. That's amazing. Because here's the thing, like, we talked about like identity and how this is such a important moment for Jesse really connecting with his own agency, because he could have done nothing, right? Like, he's breaking the rules, right? Like, we know, because we've been watching the movie, that this is the right thing to do. But technically speaking, in the world that he's in, like, this is going to get him into a lot of trouble. In fact, this, like, could get him thrown back in juvie, kicked out of his foster home. Like, he has been behaving like a good kid, and he's been following a lot of the rules. And if he does this, he's risking all of that. He's misbehaving. He's defying, right? He's technically speaking, you know what I mean? Like, he's breaking and entering. He's vandalizing. He's kidnapping. This is a kidnapping. So he's doing wrong, but instead of just doing wrong and misbehaving because, you know, he thinks he doesn't have anything else to lose, because he has no parents to punish him, because he can, because he thinks that's what he should be doing, he's misbehaving with intention, choice, and with full knowledge of what he's doing, because he knows that it is the right thing to help this creature who cannot do that themselves. This creature whose fasticities are preventing him from embracing his own freedom and agency in a way that Jesse now realizes he can. Willy teaches Jesse about his freedom, and Jesse uses that freedom to give Willy his. This is a perfect movie. This is a perfect movie. It's so good. I mean, except for the animal abuse. Animal abuse aside, this is a perfect movie. And this theme is everywhere with the boys and their whales. It's in Luna, right? Only once Mike hears that they are planning to catch this whale in a net and put him in a truck and drive him down the coast from Canada to California, and then take him out to his old pod and like hope to God that they let him back in. And if they don't, they've already got a bidding war with several other knockoff SeaWorlds trying to buy him. It's only after Mike learns that that's the plan that he's like, okay, actually, fuck that. Get the boats. We're going to save the whale. And they do. They get in the tribal boats that were cleaned earlier, this like motif, and they go out and they are like, we are going to lead Willy, no, it's not Willy, Luna to deeper ocean. That's the plan. Right? Mike isn't saying we're going to keep the whale. He's also not saying we're getting rid of the whale. He's saying we're going to lead him out into the ocean deep enough so that he can choose whether or not he wants to go find his pod or if he wants to stick around. It's only in fighting for this whale to have the opportunity to choose whether or not he wants to stay with the band that Mike is able to really choose whether or not he wants to stay with the band. And he does. Of course he does. So does the whale, actually. And it's quite sad. I think in the movie, if I remember correctly in the movie, it's like a good thing. But in the real story, the real whale also decided to stick around. And I think he was eventually killed by a boat, which is a bummer. But to be fair, if they had tried to drive him on land, he very much could have died or been severely traumatized. And also, we know from the story of freeing Keiko that they're not always welcome back in the pod. They don't always reconnect really well. And technically, Luna was not captive, so it might have been different. I'm not a whale scientist, but there were a lot of risks to every option, but I will say that it is quite sad in the end. But I mean, he loved boats. Maybe he died doing what he loved. I don't know. That said, these whales are dragging these boys out of existential crises, out of the anxiety of choice. And they don't even need to be helpless. Honestly, whales don't even need to be helpless and need freedom to do this either. I mean, Jonah's whale is just a messenger. Jonah's whale is just here because God sent a storm to get Jonah off that boat, and the whale is like, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to take responsibility for what God is asking me to do. Not ignoring his responsibility or, letting Jonah die a horrible, painful death in his intestines, which I mean, could have done. He could have swallowed a shark. I mean, if he could swallow a man, he could have swallowed a shark after and then game over for Jonah. Or he could have let Jonah fucking drown. But he didn't. He spat him back up on land and then he dipped. Talk about a use of your agency. Whenever we talk about like religious stories, the concept of agency is kind of murky when you talk about stuff like that because of the whole God thing and like predestination and like, I mean... Like, it's spawned wars, okay? But within the narrative, right, within the story itself, following God and listening to God's commands is a choice, okay? And so that's what freedom and agency is in that world and within that narrative, is choosing to do what God says. That doesn't have to be your definition of agency and freedom and choice, but that is Jonah's. But it's only after that experience that Jonah is like, fine, I'll go. I'll do the right thing. I'll save the city from being smited. I won't go run away and pretend that there was nothing I could have done and say, oh, well, too bad, so sad the city's gone. There's more to this story, to be fair. I want to say there's a whole thing with like a plant that saves Jonah's life as well. I can't get too into that, but there is an interlude, let's say, between him getting spat up. I think he's like almost dying in the desert sun, and God sends him a plant to keep him cool and give him shade. And there's like an interaction with that before he goes to prophesize to Nineveh. But that's not actually super relevant to the point that we're making. The point is, I love this story. One of the things that I love about this is what happens after, actually, is like the conversation between God and Jonah after he prophesizes to Nineveh and saves them. Because this is the point where if you've heard Jordan Peterson tell this story, you might not know this part. Because Jordan Peterson, for some reason, like cuts off the story after Jonah goes to prophesize to Nineveh. I don't know why Jordan Peterson does anything, but this one really confused me because I listened to him talk about this like several times. This video almost was like a Jordan Peterson takedown because I didn't know what the theme was going to be. And I was like, well, I mean, I've always wanted to pick a fight with Jordan Peterson, but alas, I'm not doing that. Maybe I will one day. But point is, there's this whole conversation that they have after where you talk about compassion, right? And God is like, if I can have compassion for you who did wrong and ran away like a exact quote. If I can give you the opportunity to get spat back out by a whale and choose to do better, how can I not have compassion for people who sin when they don't even know that they have another choice? You knew you could have done the right thing and you dipped. These people don't even know. These people don't even realize that there's a world outside the whale. I think he says, how can I not forgive people who don't know their right hand from their left? They've repented now and they want to do better, and that is what matters. That they've made the choice to do better, and that they understand that they can do better and be better, and that they can live differently. It's actually the central theme of the Jewish tradition of Yom Kippur, where they read Jonah during service because it's a day of repentance. Maya Bernstein, for My Jewish Learning, writes, we read Jonah to be reminded that if God could forgive Nineveh, then of course God can forgive us. And like Pinocchio isn't even the one who gets swallowed in that story. Geppetto is swallowed by that whale because Geppetto is going to save Pinocchio, he thinks. If you don't know this part of the story, Pinocchio, second time around, has gone off to Pleasure Island to get like child drunk or something. And Geppetto is going to go and try and save him. And on his way to the island, ends up swallowed by like, it's like not, if I tell you it's not technically speaking like a whale, now will you be mad? Because if you will, then it's a whale. If you won't, then I think it's like technically some just like large sea fish thing in the historical tale. I don't fucking know. Point is, he gets swallowed by this. And this makes Pinocchio realize that he made bad choices and now he has to go and make a choice to do the right thing and do something good. And he goes and he sacrifices himself and he saves Geppetto. And his reward for that is that the blue fairy makes him a real boy. Like, this is the perfect analogy for bad faith, because he starts in bad faith thinking he doesn't really have control, thinking he's just kind of, it's not really his fault. And it's not until he accepts that like it was his fault that Geppetto went out there and was being eaten by this whale, not whale thing. And he has to go do something. He accepts his responsibility for his past actions and uses his agency to save the whale, and he sacrifices himself and he sacrifices his future agency to save Geppetto from this whale. And in that journey, he has learned enough about himself that the blue fairy is like, you know what? You are a real boy. You are authentic as fuck. Actually, pretty damn authentic. Have some legs. That's the whole thing. And I think it's really interesting, okay? I think that the idea of authenticity and the meaning of life and humanity being found in choices and agency and freedom is something that I really connect to and I find really appealing. And I just love that it's whales. I just love it. I just love that it's just a bunch of whales. That's what does it. And I don't know why. Maybe it's not even that it's whales. Maybe it's just like there's like a lot of stories like this. I mean, God knows I can make a connection out of anything. We can read anything into anything here. That's the motto of the channel, in case you forgot. But there is just something that I find really sweet and lovely about the fact that We as humans have decided that children and troubled men connecting with this like weird, soft, very personality, like human like kind of creature from the deep is how we're gonna teach agency, like is how we're gonna tell stories about, you know, connecting with yourself and your morality and your freedom and blah blah blah. I think it's cute. I think it's sweet. I love it. I like when humans do cute things. And Free Willy is really good. Free Willy is so good. Free Willy is a class A movie. And I didn't get to talk to you about it, but there is also a scene where Jesse is retelling the story of Nastalene after Randolph tells it to him, and he's telling it to his new foster mom, and he's so excited. He's so excited. He's so passionate. It's so cute. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, so go watch Free Willy. If any of you have read Moby Dick and you can connect this to Moby Dick, please do, because I have not. So I have a feeling that book's long enough that it's got to be in there somewhere, right? At the end of the day, boys and their whales, man. Boys and their whales. All right, so let's wrap it up. Thank you. I hope you had a good time. If you enjoyed that, then you can head over to my Patreon because there will be a bonus video. I'm about to film a bonus video while I bedazzle my rhinestone bodysuit because someone on TikTok convinced me that I could pull off the pop star bodysuit and that I should bedazzle it. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And this is a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to rhinestone this and talk to you about the Free Willy animated spin-off that features a talking whale and aliens. Good time. Good time. Check that out. It's going to be on my Patreon eventually. Thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. There is a link in the description and in the pinned comment. You can try 2 weeks free. Keep your data safe, my friends. Keep yourselves... that's not very safe. Carried Away is out. That's my latest single. There is going to be much more music of that vibe coming soon, and I'm very excited about it. I'm playing a live show in New York in early May. I think it's May 7th, and I'll have a full band, and that'll be really fun. So if you are local to New York City, you can come and hang out. A bunch of people actually came the last time I played a show in New York City, and it was really fucking fun. So please do come. My Instagram and all that stuff will have links. And last but not least, the comment shout out from the last video goes to Tuesday Taping, who said, "This must be what it is like to watch an oracle interpret her own prophecies after coming out of a trance." Thank you very much for everybody who's been streaming that song, and you can follow me on all my other social platforms. And thank you so much. I'm gonna get to rhinestoning. Bye! Bella, do you want to say bye? Okay, fine. Daddy got carried away, whatever that means.
Go hang yourself inside the cave with the others. Welcome to my collection, Herodotus's eighth wonder.